Hey there. Thanks for tuning in today. I'm thrilled you're here. I've got a fresh tale to share, so let's jump right into it. I'm Luis, just a regular guy. And when people hear I ran into my ex-wife after 5 long years at our son's graduation, they often think it must have felt like some fairy tale moment. But honestly, there was no burst of triumph, no sigh of relief, or even a smug thought of her realizing what she walked away from. Instead, seeing her brought back a flood of memories. Everything I fought through, everything I pieced back together after she left my world in shambles. Before I get to that day, though, I need to rewind to where it all began, because this story didn't kick off at the graduation. It goes way back, years earlier, to a vibrant night in Savannah, the night I crossed paths with Monica. I'd headed to Savannah to hang out with my buddy Chester, who'd just opened a cozy little bar in the Riverwalk district. If you've ever been there, you know that place hums with a special kind of magic. That evening, we decided to swing by a jazz club not far from his spot, just to kick back and catch up. We snagged a table close to the stage, ordered a couple of drinks, and let the smooth music wash over us. Everything was laid back and easy, until my eyes landed on this stunning woman sitting by herself at the bar. At first, I just observed from a distance, wondering if she was waiting for a friend or a date. After a few songs, Chester nudged me with a grin and said, "Come on, man, go talk to her. You've been staring forever." I thought, what's the worst that could happen? If she wasn't interested, I'd just head back to my seat. So, I strolled over and tossed out a simple hello. To my surprise, she turned, flashed a warm smile, and answered like we were already old pals. Her name was Monica, and she shared that she was visiting from Austin for a work conference that had just wrapped up. She wasn't big on drinking, but the jazz club's vibe had pulled her in as she wandered back to her hotel, tempting her to stop for a quick drink. We ended up chatting for hours. No kidding. It was like we skipped all the usual small talk and dove straight into a real connection. We laughed, swapped stories about our lives, and rambled about everything from music to our jobs to the little quirks that make us who we are. Before we realized it, the club was shutting down for the night. She glanced at her phone and mentioned she had an early flight back to Austin the next morning. Neither of us wanted to call it quits, but time wasn't on our side. We swapped numbers, I walked her out, and we said goodbye. As she vanished into the night, I couldn't shake the feeling that I might never see her again, though I sure hoped I would. Back then, I brushed it off as just a great evening with an amazing woman. But now I see that night at the jazz club planted the seed for something much bigger than I ever imagined. That night in Savannah wasn't the end for Monica and me. It was only the start. Unlike most random meetups that fade away, we kept in touch, texting every day and staying up late on phone calls, no matter how packed our schedules got. It didn't take long for us to admit we were catching feelings, so we dove into a long-distance relationship. Let me tell you, loving someone from miles away isn't a walk in the park, but we made it work with effort and heart. After months of calls and weekend trips to see each other, I made a choice that flipped my life upside down. I packed my bags and moved to Austin to be closer to her. When I settled in Austin, it felt like the world was wide open with possibilities. Those early days with Monica were like living in a dream. We were so in tune with each other. Monica had this incredible drive, always pouring herself into her work, whether it was late-night presentations or extra business calls. I admired her passion, even if it meant some nights we barely saw each other. I knew how much her goals meant to her, and I respected that. Meanwhile, I picked up contracting gigs around the city, hoping to build a solid foundation for us to grow together. Sure, we were different. She was a powerhouse, always pushing forward, while I was more grounded, taking things one step at a time. But those differences didn't pull us apart. They made us better. Her fire inspired me to dream bigger, and my calm steadiness helped her find balance when life got overwhelming. We didn't just coexist, we complemented each other. We didn't drag our feet, either. Not long after I got to Austin, we made it official and got married, sealing our commitment with joy. 10 months later, we welcomed our son into our lives, and I remember thinking, this is everything I ever wanted. For a while, life truly felt like it was coming together. Yeah, we were swamped with work, juggling late nights and early mornings. But our home was filled with laughter and love. That joy made even the toughest days worth it. For a stretch, everything seemed picture-perfect until Monica's career started soaring and things began to shift in ways I didn't see coming. Monica was absolutely killing it at work, racking up promotions, earning praise, and taking on bigger roles. I couldn't have been prouder of her ambition, but that success came with a heavy price tag. Her calendar filled up fast, and those late nights at the office stretched into overnight work trips. One trip turned into a couple, then a couple became several, and soon she'd be gone for days or even weeks at a time. When she was finally home, she was either glued to her laptop, racing to catch up on emails, or so exhausted she could barely string a sentence together. The Monica I used to come home to, the one who'd laugh and share stories, felt like a distant memory. It was like I was sharing the house with a coworker, not the woman I married. Meanwhile, my own business was hitting rough waters. I poured everything I had into keeping my contracting company afloat, trying to hold our family together financially. So there we were, two people under the same roof but living in totally separate universes. The closeness we once had faded away, and every chat felt like a cold, transactional exchange. Eventually, I stopped reaching out. It was like talking to a brick wall, and I was tired of trying. One night, I walked into the kitchen and caught her on the phone, her voice soft and flirty, like she was talking to someone special. When she saw me standing there, her face froze, and that look told me everything I needed to know. Things got heated fast, words flew, accusations piled up, and in the middle of it all, she stared right at me and said, "Maybe I should just end this marriage." The air went still. I stood there, stunned, as she stormed out. The wild thing? I wasn't even sure if she meant it. We'd had fights before, but this one hit differently. I tried to shrug it off, convincing myself she was just mad and didn't mean it. But 2 weeks later, divorce papers showed up at my office, cold and official. It was real, and it got uglier. Monica wasn't just leaving me. She was fighting for full custody of our son. She painted me as a wreck in court, claiming I was an unstable drunk who was never there for our family, calling me irresponsible and unfit as a dad. I was floored. This was the woman who knew every sacrifice I'd made for us, yet she twisted the truth, blew small moments out of proportion, and flat out made things up. It was like she'd become a stranger. I fought back, showing proof I was there for my son and supporting our family, but the judge barely seemed to listen. It felt like the verdict was set before I even stepped into the courtroom. She got full custody, and on top of that, I was hit with a massive child support payment every month until our son turned 18. He was 13 when the divorce went through. The fallout broke me financially. My savings were gone, my reputation was trashed, and I felt like a hollow version of myself. Then, a few months later, the truth I dreaded came to light. Monica had been unfaithful. Those late-night work sessions and business trips? They weren't about work. They were about her coworker, the one I'd asked her about. The betrayal slammed into me like a freight train. I didn't even have the strength to confront her. What good would it do? The damage was done. With whatever energy I had left, I packed up and moved to a new corner of Austin, keeping it quiet. I just needed space to breathe, to survive the weight of everything she'd put me through. After Monica tore my name apart and walked away with everything, she probably thought I'd crumble in the ruins she left behind. Maybe she even hoped I'd vanish for good. But I made a choice. Her lies weren't going to define me. If she thought she'd won, let her believe it. I had bigger fights ahead. First up was the money. The legal battle left me drowning in debt. My contracting work had slowed to a crawl, and my bank account was a sad sight. I knew I had to step up, so I took on grueling jobs, learned the ins and outs of construction project management, and earned some certifications online. Bit by bit, the paychecks got better. I wasn't living large, but I was covering bills, chipping away at debts, and seeing progress. That spark of hope kept me going. Then there was the emotional toll. When someone you loved and trusted betrays you so completely, it messes with your mind. For months, I carried a heavy load of anger, questioning if I'd failed as a husband or a father, feeling like I wasn't enough. I couldn't sort through it alone, so I started therapy. I also leaned on the handful of true friends who stuck by me, reminding me of who I really was. Slowly, I found my footing again. Physically, I made a promise to myself. I wouldn't let my appearance reflect the pain I'd endured. I started small, cutting out junk food, taking morning walks, and eventually worked my way up to hitting the gym regularly. I was rebuilding, piece by piece, determined to come out stronger. The first time I caught my reflection in the mirror and saw how far I'd come, a grin spread across my face. Through all the chaos, one thing never slipped away: my connection to my son. Even though I couldn't be with him as much as I wanted, I stayed in the loop through friends and family, keeping up with his birthdays, big moments, and school updates. I made sure to send him gifts and left voicemails whenever I got the chance, just so he'd know I was still there, rooting for him. I needed him to feel that our bond hadn't faded, no matter the distance. One day, during a rare phone call we had through a relative, he said, "Dad, I want to be with you." My heart swelled, and I told him, "Focus on graduating, buddy. Finish strong, and I'll make sure you have everything you need and then some." By the second year of piecing my life back together, things were finally steady. That's when love showed up again, through someone who'd been there all along. She'd seen me at my lowest, stuck by me with patience, and when we started dating, it felt effortless, like it was meant to be. I was upfront with her, though. I said, "I'm not doing the legal marriage thing again. I've been through that ringer, and I paid the full price." She got it, no questions asked, and respected where I was coming from. Before long, the big day arrived, my son's graduation. He'd invited me, and I wasn't about to show up looking like life had beaten me down. So, I went all out, getting a sharp suit tailored just right, with clean lines that fit like a glove. I cleaned up nice, fresh shave, polished look, and I picked out an Omega watch for him. Some might call it a pricey gift, but it wasn't about the cost. It was about giving him something lasting, a symbol of this huge milestone, a marker of the new chapter ahead. I had his initials engraved on the back to make it extra special. I got to the ceremony early, as usual, picking a quiet spot in the back where I could take it all in. My partner was there beside me, calm and supportive, not saying much because she knew this day was about my son. She gave me the space I needed, and I appreciated that more than words could say. As I scanned the room, I noticed Monica, my ex-wife, up front, dressed to impress and sitting next to her new guy. The graduation rolled on: speeches, claps, cheers, but I barely noticed the details. My eyes were locked on my son. He'd worked hard for this, and it was his moment to shine. But then, as the event wrapped up, he took the stage to give a short speech for his class. I watched him closely, soaking in every second. He looked out at the crowd, his gaze sweeping the room, and then his eyes landed on me. For a heartbeat, the world stopped. I could see it in his expression, the recognition, the pride, the bond we'd held onto. And then, in front of everyone, he said words that hit me like a wave. "I want to give a shout out to someone who means the world to me. He's back there. Dad, thank you for everything. I'm so proud of you." I don't think I've ever felt prouder. My eyes got misty, and I could feel the whole room turn to look at me, head swiveling, whispers buzzing. When Monica glanced back and our eyes met, time seemed to freeze. Her face said it all. She hadn't expected this. She thought I'd faded away, a broken shell of who I used to be. But there I was, sitting quietly in that corner, stronger than ever, my life rebuilt piece by piece. After the ceremony, my son spotted me in the back row, his face lighting up as he made his way over. When he reached me, he didn't hesitate. He wrapped me in a tight hug, like he was pouring everything he felt into that one moment. As he stepped back, I caught a glimpse of Monica heading our way. My son sidestepped her attempt to talk, and she noticed. I knew she'd try something. Sure enough, Monica came over, acting like we were long-lost pals, tossing out small talk to fill the awkward silence. I didn't bite. I just smiled, gave a nod, and walked away without a second thought. Her words didn't matter to me anymore. Months later, my son moved in with me, just like he'd said he wanted. I'd promised I'd be there when he was ready, and the moment he turned 18, he packed his bags. Monica tried to change his mind, of course, pulling out all the worried mom lines to keep her grip on him, but he'd made his choice. Not long after, Monica reached out to me with a casual text, like we were old buddies catching up. "Hey, how's it going?" kind of message. I read it, but didn't reply. It wasn't about holding a grudge. I just wasn't interested in her games. She probably thought it was a way to wiggle back into my life, but I saw through it. A few days later, she sent another message, this time playing the reasonable card, saying we could co-parent without being at odds. I stayed silent. I knew why she was trying. She saw I hadn't collapsed under the weight of her lies and manipulations. My life hadn't fallen apart like she'd expected. Even months later, she kept finding excuses to reach out, always tying it to our son, talking about his future or career plans, acting like we could be friendly. But I wasn't buying it. Every message was just another attempt to hold on to some sliver of control, some tie to my world. I didn't need to say a thing to show I'd moved on. Back when I first got out of that marriage, when everything was crashing down and I didn't know how to start over, I thought the only way forward was to get even. I wanted Monica to feel the pain she'd caused, to see me as broken as I felt back then. But over time, I learned something bigger. Quietly rebuilding your life is way more powerful than any revenge. You don't need to tear someone else down to lift yourself up. Looking back, I've picked up a few lessons that stand out, and I hope they might help someone else navigating their own tough times. First, pain is more than just something to push away. It's a tool. It can either crush you or shape you into something stronger. When you're in the thick of it, it feels like the end, like there's no way through. But if you let that pain teach you, if you build on it, it can guide you to something better. That's what I did. I used it as the foundation to rebuild my life. Second, silence is power. You don't need to lash out or get caught up in petty fights when you've got bigger goals. For me, that goal was becoming whole again. Staying quiet isn't weakness, it's strength. It's about keeping your eyes on what matters most. If you keep pushing forward, nothing can shake you. And finally, healing happens quietly. You don't need to broadcast it or prove it to anyone. It's a personal journey, and the best way to move on is to realize you don't need revenge at all. The more I focused on myself, the more I saw I didn't owe anyone an explanation. My healing came from within, steady and silent. Standing there at my son's graduation, watching him shine, I knew I didn't need to say a word or make anyone feel small. I'd already won my own way. Thanks for sticking with me through this story, everyone. I'm so grateful you took the time to hear it. If anything in here resonated with you, maybe hit that like button, subscribe, or share it with someone who might need a little encouragement. We all face our own challenges, and sometimes a story like this can be just the thing to help someone keep going.